Hey everyone, Selwyn here from WynnStrength.com. On this video, we'll be starting off week 13 on our day 1 of training. So what's going to be different today is, because this is the last week before testing next week, what we're going to be doing today is simply the squat, bench, and deadlift, working up to 90% of our estimated 1 rep max, so a hypothetical opener for the day, and just that's it. No back off sets, no extra sets, just the regular variance. We'll be doing our squat with the straight barbell bench press for competition style, and then a deadlift, each working up to roughly 90% of what I think I can do. And again, what this is doing is we're getting hyper specific with the training now, because we are wanting to peak, I guess, and execute that display of strength next week. And what that does is we need to do some practice into that specific rep scheme and specific technique for building out that 1 rep max, testing out that 1 rep max, sorry. So today shouldn't take that long. Take about 5-6 minute breaks in between. Keep the warm-ups relatively short, hopefully. And we'll smash through this, hopefully get some good numbers up there. Not looking to push the weight. We're not looking to set new records today. We're looking to ingrain that technique with obviously lighter than what we think we'll be able to do on the day. So let's see what happens today. And so hopefully the shoulder holds up to both the squatting and the bench pressing in the same day. So you'll notice that I'm still using the knee sleeves. I'm not using any knee wraps. This block, this mesocycle, I haven't really focused on using knee wraps. Maybe next cycle. I'm trying to stay off knee wraps for as long as possible, just because from what I understand, it does take away from that quad activation. And because I'm not really truly entering a competition where I need to hit maximal weights, it's something that I don't think I need to do or practice with right now. Maybe in the future, if or when I decide to compete that allows wraps, I'll probably throw on some wraps and try it out. But every now and then I'll sporadically try the knee wraps. But because we are testing in knee sleeves, I'll be training in knee sleeves the way that I'll be testing out the 1 rep maxes. Okay, so we just got done with our squatting for the day. Worked up to our top set of 495. It felt really good coming up, felt really solid. It's actually my current PR. The reason I'm holding it today is I think I can get a couple more pounds next week maybe, but this will definitely be my opener for when we start testing out, just so that we have a baseline of 495. This will actually be the second time ever that I've squatted this weight. Pretty stoked with the outcome today. Speaking of how long it took, today's squatting was only 25 minutes to go from not working out to 495 pounds. Took 26 minutes, 25 minutes roughly. So that's kind of how quickly I take to warm up. Took about 5-minute breaks once we hit past 400. So most of the weighting was done at the tail end of the squatting session there. So that's kind of breaks down how I like to warm up and where I like to put the breaks. Generally before 4 or 5, I'll just have like 30-second, a minute break where I'm really just changing the plates, catching my breath, and then squatting again for a single. That's how I work myself up to the heavier weights. So next up will be bench press. Again, my shoulders are feeling good right now. Let's see how it goes once we hit that bench press and see where the inner bicep feeling and how those shoulders are feeling. Okay, so we just got done with bench press. Pretty stoked. No shoulder pain, no bicep pain. That affected the bench press. It started to creep in towards this last set here. We had our top set at 315, 10 pounds shy of my current training max. I think that's a good place to call it, just considering the shoulder issues that I'm dealing with, trying to manage that and mitigate that for next week. So kind of leaving some in the tank this week. We're kind of getting relatively heavy, but not too heavy. So I think that's a good place to call it. Again, looking at that stress mitigation, looking at how we can balance ourselves to peak for next week rather than peak this week. The decrease in the volume today, just doing a heavy single, I think is going to really help allow my body to kind of recover and not be as stressed, obviously, while we're still practicing with those heavy weights. So I think that was a great result for today with the bench press. Used the wrist straps, no belt, started to have back cramps towards the end of it, but that's kind of typical when the bench press starts to get heavy. So what we're going to do now is move on to some deadlifts, work our way up to that heavy single, probably looking at 505, maybe 510, and then calling it for the day. right, so that'll wrap up today's workout as well as today's deadlifting session. We hit our top set at 520 pounds for probably close to an RPE 9.5. My current training max is 525. I'm not too sure how much more I'll be able to lift up come next week, but I think 520 was a good opening round, a good opening weight to hit with the testing phase. So we'll see. I think we can definitely hit 525 again next week. The question is if we can go up to maybe 530 or 535. So that'll wrap up today's workout. Again, we're just working up to our opening weights that we want to choose for the mock testing phase after completing the current mesocycle. And what that means is we're not doing any volume, we're not doing any high rep stuff. We're really just wanting to work on that specificity of executing a 1 rep max on the squat, bench, and deadlift, and simulating the training scenario today and tomorrow and the later on in the week by doing all 3 lifts back to back in one day. So today's workout only took an hour and a half, roughly like 30 minutes for each lift. The deadlift took a little longer just because we are doing the slightly heavier weights and the fatigue is starting to kick in. So that's where previous weeks of building up that conditioning is going to help. You might say that you don't need conditioning as a powerlifter if you're doing just 3 heavy singles, but the amount of work that takes you to get to those 3 heavy singles is a fair amount. And then realistically on competition day, you're doing 9 heavy singles or attempting 9 heavy singles, close to your 1 rep max, if not exceeding that 1 rep max that you previously tested. So in order to make it through that day or make it through that meet, make it through that competition day, you're going to need a fair amount of just like some sort of baseline baseline conditioning level, just because you have to be able to keep up with the ability to keep lifting, not only lift the heavy weights, but do all the warm-ups up to that weight, because we're not just walking in doing literally 9 lifts, we're going in, warming up for those 9 lifts. So there's relevant reps and sets before that. You're sitting around this and that. So you do need a baseline level of conditioning in order to even compete in something that's completely anaerobic like powerlifting. Just because you need to keep up with that, you have to have that work capacity, A, in order to compete, but B, to train for that day. And that's where I think the conditioning in the past few months leading up to this has definitely helped me, because I don't feel as spent as I do from a cardiovascular standpoint as I normally have in the past when I've done this. So I think that's definitely helping maintain my ability to lift weights throughout the entire session. What I've noticed in the past was, looking back, is that my strength would somewhat disappear because my conditioning couldn't keep up with my ability to output that strength. So if hypothetically we did squat one day, bench the next day, then deadlift the next day, we would be refreshed after each day and be able to pick up a fair amount more weight than you could when I was doing squat, bench, deadlift in the one session like I did today, where with somewhat minimal rest, my conditioning work capacity wasn't there. So by the time the deadlift came around, it was definitely a lot worse than it was if I had a fresh day to try the deadlift. So there's a couple more aspects to think about that I'm kind of looking at my own training cycles and goals and figuring out what's working and what isn't. So I think that's something that's great for everyone to do, is to look back, self-assess, look where your strengths, weaknesses are, and what you can improve on and how you can improve on those. So again, the rest of the week is just going to be working up for these testing week, working up to peak week. So today was opening, tomorrow will be last warm-up sets, and then the third day is just going to be, again, some more heavy singles just to prime the body for that display of strength next week. So stay tuned for 2 more days of working out. This has been Selwyn from WynnStrength, and remember, a better life through strength.